Right now, I want to open up the phone lines to a good buddy and colleague of mine from the NFL Media Group, Albert Breer, who is down in Texas at the courthouse, where Adrian Peterson pleaded not guilty as expected, correct?
Right, and, I think now the next thing is really the timeline. Rusty Hard, his lawyer, who obviously has been a big name in those circles for a long time, came out and said that the priority now is to try to get him a quick and speedy trial. And the big thing, listening to him talk, he kept going over, this is the same guy that you've always known. He's a good guy. This isn't a question of, his character. This is a question of, parenting in general and methods that different people in different areas of the country use. And then he said that for right now, at least, the trial date has been put on the docket for December 1st, but there are some legal machinations that could happen between now and then that could affect that. Obviously, the goal for them is to try to get him back on the field by the end of the year.
Right, but I mean, December 1st, we're talking that would leave only four. Let's just say that even if it is December 1st and they throw the case out, right, that would give him 4 games left in the year if the Vikings still feel comfortable enough putting him back on the field. Where do you think that would stand just moving forward in terms of Adrian Peterson getting back on the field, their relationship right now, Albert?
Yeah, I think it really depends on what happens in the court. If you don't welcome him back and you don't cut him, and you're the Vikings and he is exonerated, then obviously you're putting yourself under considerable legal liability. Also when you take into account the fact that he's already going to have missed a whole bunch of games before due process played out. So, I think for both the league and the team, there's a little bit of a dance that they're going to have to do here to make it all work because this is a player who is losing games off of his career as we speak. If he was to miss the whole season, we're talking about 16 games. If he plays 10 years in the league, 160 games, that'd be 10% of his career. So, certainly I think that this is a tricky one for the team. This is a tricky one for the league. And my sense of it is that we could get a resolution before December 1st because, Rusty Hard did say that if other cases fall off the docket, that theirs could move up. But the prosecutor certainly doesn't seem to be on board with that. They're trying to get the judge recused. So
why?
Right now it's complicated because allegedly the judge called both parties in this case media whores. Some interesting verbiage from the judge, but that's what the prosecutor said
Really?
The judge did. And so now the prosecutor's trying to get the judge recused. Now, if that happens, and they're going to hear that part of the case in November, if the judge is recused, then, now we're talking about a new judge, and that could change the dynamic altogether. So, from a legal standpoint, this is a very, very complicated one. And, I think for Adrian Peterson, especially at that position, Rich, where your career is, those guys age in dog years. It's obviously the priority is to try to get him back in good standing with the NFL as quickly as possible, and the legal stuff could certainly delay that. But obviously you listen to Hard talk, and they're trying their best to get it done even before December 1st. The other thing that could come into play here too is if a possible plea deal is offered to Peterson. Harden was asked directly about that, and he wouldn't answer it. So,
right, because
it'll be interesting to see if a plea agreement comes into play here.
The optics, though, Albert, because that's what we deal with right now. In the optics, the video that we just saw. I don't know. Usually, I only ask questions I try to know the answer to beforehand. Were you in the courtroom yourself, Albert?
I was.
Okay.
I was. Yeah.
So then you saw on the other side of the aisle, I guess, guys straight from prison getting arraigned themselves. They looked like from the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? They had those prison uniforms on, and then across the aisle is the MVP of the league twice removed, and community service darling, as he has been his whole career, from Minnesota. It's just awful when you think about it.
That stuck out to me, Rich, and I couldn't help. We were on the left side of the courtroom, and you could see it was split, like where those people who were the inmates were on the left side of the aisle, and then the people who were there on the docket that weren't in prison were on the right side. And Peterson was kind of over close to the aisle there. And it was a jarring sight, to look at this guy who's probably one of the, you'd say one of the 10 most recognizable faces in the league, somewhere in there, right?
Yeah.
He's sitting there, and then across the way there are guys in jumpsuits with stripes handcuffed and chained. And, I mean, for the league, the optics of this morning were absolutely awful, considering the kind of guy that Adrian Peterson has been portrayed to be over his first 7 years in the league. And, certainly I think that's something that they'd be taking note of in New York at the league meeting this morning.
So a couple other issues I want to hit with you.
Yep.
Because we're going to have Nick Foles on later. And the number of touchdowns the Eagles have scored, the Lions' share of them have come defensively and on special teams, with Nick Foles not operating the offense in the manner that we, at least last year, became accustomed to. What do you owe the struggles of the Eagles' offense to, from what you're hearing, Albert?
Well, I think part of it, and this happens at every level of football, is teams having a full off season to go back and look at what Chip Kelly was doing. You can adjust on the fly, but I think even that's difficult, and you're chasing ghosts to some degree because you don't know how he's going to kind of keep evolving the offense over the course of the year. Teams had a chance now to go back and look at what Chip Kelly was doing, spend an off season trying to figure out this is how we handle this, because you knew other teams were going to come out and emulate it. I mean, the most prominent example would probably be the Dolphins with Bill Lazor going down there from Chip Kelly's staff to run the offense. And there's also, the element of if you're a coach in the NFC, say you're with Dallas or you're with the Giants or you're with the Redskins, you also have the opportunity to get on the phone with, say, the coach at Stanford or the coach at Washington or the coach at Washington State and say, can you take a look at the Eagles film for me and just explain to me what you would do in this circumstance? And I know teams did that in the off season. So, I think the good news for the Eagles is that Chip's always on top of this type of stuff, and he's always trying to keep the program evolving forward. And, I know in his mind this is kind of, a roadblock that was foreseeable, something that you could plan on. But certainly right now you see the NFL catching up to some of the stuff that the Eagles were doing. And, now the Eagles got to make that second adjustment back. It's almost like a player, a rookie player coming into the league having a big first year.
Yeah, sure.
The league's got tape on him, and then he's got to readjust again. That's almost like what it's like with Chip Kelly.
Yeah,
now.
Rod Woodson always would tell me, just give somebody an offseason, a defensive coordinator will figure something out. And Warren Sapp says every single Sunday almost on game day morning that the most adaptable organism on planet Earth is an NFL defense. So perhaps that's what's happening. We'll talk about that with Nick Foles later on. What is going on in New England? And by that, I mean the discussion that Tom Brady has been cut out of the play calling with Josh McDaniels. I thought everything was supposed to be hunky-dory after what we saw on Sunday night, Albert.
Well, I will tell you this. I talked to some of, and this was during the game. While the game was going on, I was texting with some guys I know who used to play there, who were saying what a great job Josh was doing from a play calling standpoint. The game plan was spotless against Cincinnati, and that showed up. I think one of the things that's difficult here, Tom Brady's used to having a very, very evolved offense because he's been there for 15 years. So the system's become so bastardized because he's so advanced in it, and he's been working for so long within that system that he's so far ahead of everybody else. Well, now you throw some new pieces in there, throw new guys in there, and it may not make sense from the team standpoint to make it the most complicated offense on earth like Tom Brady could have it being. Because for the other guys and the other 10 guys in the huddle have to be in tune with them as well. And so I think that's part of it, that at least in the early parts of the season, it made some sense for them to dial back a little bit, simplify, to try to get guys, and you saw Tim Wright out there on Sunday, and get some of those guys, Brandon LaFell, up to speed in the offense, and then they can kind of evolve going forward. I talked to Brady about it at length on Friday, and the one thing he continued to say is, we're evolving. And he's like, we don't know what we are right now. We're still trying to figure that out. It looked good on Sunday. I'm sure he knows that there's still going to be some bumps in the road, but he reiterated again and again and again, December's when we're going to know. We never know what we are in October. And, so I think you give it some time. And I think Brady's hope is that it becomes a little bit more complicated and a little bit more evolved as you go on with some of the new players they have there.
In the 30 seconds I have left with you, Albert, based on what you saw today in that courthouse, does Adrian Peterson play this season?
No, I don't think so. I think the legal process is going to complicate things to the degree where he can't play this year. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out because, I think there is a chance this thing gets heard in December, but I think a lot would have to happen pretty quickly. in those 31 days of December for him to get back on the field in time.
And they only have 4 games in the month of December for him to get back on the field for.
Right, I guess it's the 27th, right? The last day of the season, whatever it is. I don't think it'll be enough.
Albert, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
You got it, Rich.
You bet. Albert Breer of NFL Media, and also NFL.com is where you can read all his great work.